Hey Basement Dwellers, I took another stab at improvisational vlog-style video production, but to give you a bit of advance warning, the audio quality is very subpar, and the video in general didn't quite hit the standards of what I want a Mother's Basement video to be, but I still want to gush about Pokemon Masters somewhere, so I'm posting it here instead. To be clear, this also doesn't represent the level of quality we're aiming to hit here on Basement Life. Before this, I filmed a light novel review with Yazzie that I think you guys are gonna love. It was a ton of fun for us to film, and it's her first try taking the lead on a video, which she did a really good job of, despite being very nervous about it. So please look forward to watching that this weekend. I'm very proud of both our work on it. Now, without further ado, let's talk about this Pokemon Trainer Gacha game.
Pokemon Masters is actually a really good video game, surprisingly. If you're wondering why I'm doing this in a sort of unscripted fashion, there's two reasons for that. The first is that I'm working on a bigger video for Oh Maidens in Your Savage Season for this Saturday, and I just want to spend most of my time this week working on that. The second reason, if you haven't noticed, is that all of the footage of this game is vertical, and it would be really hard to integrate that into a scripted video essay like I normally do, so I just figured, I'm gonna wing it. Let me know how I do. It will probably be terrible. I didn't expect much of this game when I first heard about the concept. I mean, the idea of, just collecting them in the same way that you collect characters in Fate Go or whatever just seemed like it wouldn't appeal to me. Still, I am a big Pokemon fan and I wanted to give the game a chance, so when I found out that it was coming to Canada a month early in beta, I downloaded it and tried it out, and it turns out it's really, really good. All of the Pokemon Masters are rendered in this very slick, anime-style, cel-shaded 3D look. There's not a single 3D model that I've seen that doesn't look incredible, and making them fit together cohesively, too. You don't really think about this a lot of the time, but making a mobile game that celebrates a series that's been around for 25 years and 5 different console generations is difficult. The art style's a bit different from what you might expect from a Pokemon property. They've brought in, I would say, a little bit more of the moe aesthetic, especially for some of the girls. Obviously, this is a Nintendo game, so they're not gonna go too far down the fan service rabbit hole, but when you look at a character like, say, Olivia, or you look at how cute they've made, say, Rosa's revamped character design, you can tell that they're trying to appeal to otaku to a certain degree. I think that's gonna work, but at the same time, that's not quite the focus here. It's more a byproduct of what they're trying to do, which is bring out these characters' unique personalities as much as possible. And what really makes that aspect of the game shine is the animation. In dialogue scenes, the characters just pop from pose to pose in very dynamic and expressive ways. You can feel there's different energy and enthusiasm for Pokemon training, and they've all sort of got their own unique vibe to them that I think will really appeal to the gacha collectors market. In a lot of ways, it reminds me of the 3D Phoenix Wright and Professor Layton games as an example of what a proper AAA company can do with a visual novel style of game. And yeah, this is a visual novel style, story-driven Pokemon game. And I didn't think that would work, but it surprisingly does pretty well. The story involves a bunch of Pokemon masters from around the world being invited to this island where a professor is trying out a new style of Pokemon battle called sync battles. The unique gimmick is that each of these iconic characters is paired up with one Pokemon partner who they have a deep bond to, and they need to work on the power of that bond to get stronger and eventually win the Pokemon Masters League. It's different dynamic from the standard Pokemon story. It still feels very much like a Pokemon story. There's an evil team and you gotta get badges, but the writing is solid enough and it moves at a brisk enough pace that sort of simple story is really entertaining to watch. It can also be really funny. Your character has the option to sass back the other trainers at a lot of different points, and they do some pretty ridiculous things as characters in the Pokemon universe are wont to do. Whenever you unlock a new character through the gacha, you get to play through a sync story that just lets you have like a fun conversation with them, where generally speaking they'll tell you about their goals on the island and also how they met their Pokemon partner, or sort of what their dynamic with that partner is. And that helps you develop a sort of emotional attachment to these characters who in the games that they came from were really just very simple and archetypal. One of the first characters who I unlocked through the gacha was, luckily enough, Whitney, who's always been one of my favorite gym leaders. I think she's a really underrated Pokemon waifu. One of the things I really liked was learning the backstory of how she met that fucking Miltank, who uses rollout every fucking turn. And you gotta grind for like a week just to get strong enough to survive that. Sorry, I have clearly got some deep-seated issues about that I need to work through personally. In the anime and the comics, the Pokemon are allowed to sort of have their own personalities, but that doesn't really happen in the games very much, and that can make it a little bit difficult to develop a real attachment to your team. But here, all of the trainers you team up with and their Pokemon have backstory to them that adds an extra level of investment to the party that you build, and makes Pokemon feel a little bit more JRPG-ish. Pokemon Masters takes the standard Pokemon stat lineup and moves that you're used to and reworks them into this faster, more dynamic 3-on-3 cooldown-based real-time battle system. It's clear that part of the reason that they retooled the battle system in this way is to take better advantage of a mobile phone interface, but it's really strategically interesting and engaging. The real-time elements create a genuine sense of pressure that can lead to you fucking up in big ways, and it gets challenging pretty quickly. There's dimensions to these battles that you don't have to think about in your average Pokemon game, and that feels really nice when the only other example of Pokemon on mobile boils down all of its battles to tap the screen as fast as you can and hope that your stats are better than the other guys. With all of this going on in the battles, I kind of wish that I was able to take my team of masters up against other players, but the game is very squarely focused on PvE and the co-op experience. You can actually bring in 2 other players to join your team and take on some of the game's toughest challenges on your own. But they do a really good job of making the single-player experience feel engaging, and I think that the mechanical challenge of trying to juggle 3 different characters feels about as satisfying as the frantic communication that I imagine plays into that co-op experience. I haven't had a chance to try it yet because I don't have friends. Your attacks in general just feel really good to use, although the cooldown-based battle system does sometimes take away a bit of the immediacy and responsiveness that you'd want from them, especially when you've got a lot of different moves chained up one after another. But while all of those are happening, your timers are always counting up, so you do always have something to think about, and it never feels slow. It can just feel a little bit laggy at times. The one thing that always feels satisfying to do in battle is activating your sync moves, which are these special powered up attacks that each trainer can do with their Pokemon. You get this really cool show-stopping animation where your trainer does this cool flourish, and then the Pokemon unleashes this big attack, and you get to see it devastate the other team. And there's just enough strategy and gameplay buildup that goes into using them that those animations don't feel overdone. They just feel like a satisfying reward for planning things out correctly. And when you can use those moves to wipe out the entire enemy team or take out a really important target, that just feels awesome. When you use a sync move, it basically always has the impact and power that you expect a really powerful summon or limit break move in a JRPG to have, and it feels satisfying in similar ways. And because the enemy battle parties are all sort of pre-designed to create somewhat unique strategic challenges, you never get that repetition that drags down a lot of those old JRPGs. It just feels really satisfying to play. There's a good balance between the story segments and the gameplay segments. I feel like they've really chosen a good roster of Pokemon trainers that people like to be represented within the main story. The menu interfaces are all really satisfying. Again, it's Nintendo and DNA. That's not a surprise, and it appeals to the otaku collector in me in a way that I didn't think that it would. It allowed me to connect with these characters whose designs I've always liked, but who I didn't really know much about beyond that, outside of, you know, the Pokemon Adventures manga. And it creates this new type of Pokemon experience that feels absolutely in line with what somebody who loves Pokemon will want, but also feels new and refreshing. If you've got a phone that can run it in any capacity, it's honestly worth downloading just to see the sort of revamped and reanimated 3D Pokemon character designs that it's got. Pokemon Masters shows that there's still room to explore game mechanics and systems in ways that work uniquely well on mobile and that add new wrinkles to existing gameplay formulas. The one thing that will trip people up is the gacha elements, which I know some people don't like and I think are skeezy in a lot of different scenarios. And to be fair, they are a little bit skeezy here. While the game does dole out a generous amount of premium currency through regular play, buying that premium currency, just getting enough for a 10 pull, can be prohibitively expensive, and I wouldn't recommend spending too much money on this game, at least early on. But on the flip side, there is a lot that they can do with the whole sync pair concept. I'm just imagining alternate costumes for these characters, or maybe a few gym leaders come in with different Pokemon partners and different sync pair stories. There's a lot of different ways that they could handle that could make collecting really fun. If you're the kind of person who enjoys gacha games and knows how to handle yourself in them, you're gonna have a lot of fun with this one. I know that a ton of you guys are gonna play this even without my recommendation, but if you're on the fence about it, or like me, you thought the idea sounded dumb, give it a try. You will almost certainly be surprised by how good Pokemon Masters is. Let me know in the comments below what you think of Pokemon Masters, and also what you thought of this sort of informal recommendation style video. I feel like I might want to do more of these if I find a game or anime that I really like and don't have time to write a proper essay about, but obviously I don't want to make something that you guys don't enjoy watching. That said, thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Jeff Thu, Professional Shitbag, signing out from my mother's basement.